All right. Well, welcome to the first TYT Nation community highlight. We have our first ever community member coming to talk about what they do, how they make change in the world, and all the great things that they have coming up. So, everybody say hello to Dillon. How are you, Dillon?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. So, Dillon, I've heard all about you and all the stuff that you do with Gen Z, taking over the nation, taking over the world. Tell us first a little bit about your backstory and kind of how you got to the program we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Dillon Bernard. I best am described as a cultural organizer. So I have been behind the scenes supporting a lot of the social media and digital strategy for movements across voting rights, climate, civic engagement. And, this is something I've been doing since I was 12, it's just like creating websites, creating projects that really center young people.
Wow,
I've
since
always,
12, a
yeah,
prodigy. That is
yeah,
I didn't expect you
yeah,
to say that. I thought you were gonna maybe say, since college or whatever, but
yeah.
12.
Yeah, so I was like, and that's the beauty of the internet and being raised
Mhm.
on the internet, so to speak. There's all these kind of guys cons and all of these other conversations around being raised on the internet. But the other piece is that you can kind of just create things, find a community and build. So, I was naturally always a builder of just spaces. And I think
Right.
in building projects, building like online magazines, I just really got to see the power that, building those platforms had for people.
Mhm.
Got to see people like find their voice and be like, okay, finally I have something to say and I have a spot to say it in.
Right.
And that's really what inspires a lot of my work now. It's just this idea that, storytelling can be used as a self-empowerment tool and then
Mhm.
also as a tool for justice.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And so I'm really interested in this 12 years old ass because that's just blowing my mind. So what type, I mean, were they organizing web-based websites when you were first starting out, or were they just kind of like, your school had like a walkout or something? Was it based around that, or was it just kind of, some other website based
It
stuff?
was basically across like everything. So the first project I said was it was a culture magazine and it
Mhm.
just covered pop culture. So that was my like, okay, I really loved pop culture. I was a
Mhm.
Pop Trigger fan. If folks know TYT's old show Pop Trigger, like that was what I really really enjoyed, was just talking about pop culture. So that was really my first projects. And then through that project we started to talk about kind of deeper issues and social justice issues. So then we kind of intertwine that.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so tell us about the work you're doing now. Just give us like an overview of the work, people that you've worked with, because I know you've been doing this program for, did you do it 1 or 2 years now? Or like,
For 2 years
yeah,
now. Yep.
2 years. That's what I thought. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about that work, how that came about, and let's hear it.
Yeah. So young people, as folks know, are eager and they're ready to change the world.
Mhm.
But I think what I found in being in these spaces is that there's so much opportunity to really center young people's voices.
Mhm.
I've been in a lot of these spaces and like we're doing great work, but there's actually limited spaces for us to talk about the work. So
Mhm.
in seeing that throughout my work, I was like, is there a way to really use the moments that folks are paying attention to in order to just shift the attention and priorities to young people? So that's really
Right.
what inspires a lot of my work, is like, okay, what are folks talking about culturally, and then how
Mhm.
can we just surprise them and talk about social justice? So that's really been how I think about it, is this
Uh,
culture and social justice sphere of things. So that's really why I created Young People Dressed a Nation, to shift America's attention to the stories and priorities of young people. So,
mhm.
the vision of the youth response is to turn this moment into an active movement and active conversations.
Mhm.
Understand that millions of people will tune into the State of the Union.
Right.
Millions of people will just kind of check out the State of the Union in the parts that go viral,
Yeah.
but in none of that conversation will most times young people will be featured in it. Will be Our
Yes.
issues will be on the docket, but we won't actually be part of the conversation. So
Right. You'll be in the
essentially,
crowd. They'll show
yeah,
the camera will like pan to
yeah,
a Gen Zer
yeah,
and be like, "Look, the youth."
yeah. I'm sure we'll pan to Maxwell and we'll kind of see Maxwell there,
Yeah,
Representative
yeah,
Frost
yeah.
there. So I think, we have these kind of Gen Z moments, but this is our
Mhm.
a really opportunity to be like, okay, we're here and we also have things to say. So right now, and the beauty of doing this event is that we were just gonna have 10 or so young people, and now we have close to 25 young people who are gonna
Nice.
give their youth response. So we're going to have several different young people give their response to what's happening, whether it be in climate, gun intervention, racial justice,
Mhm.
education, health. We have it all on planned, and really going to follow the conversation that President Biden begins on the State of the Union Day.
Nice, nice. Now, when the the young folks respond, is it broken down in any sort of way? Like, for example, is it broken down by like issue area, interest area, or is it kind of just like people react to all of it? Like, what's kind of the breakdown there?
Yeah, so we're dividing it based on issue area.
Mhm.
So we have climate, gun violence prevention, civic engagement, education, health, and then we have a conversation on racial justice as well. And of
Nice.
course, the beauty of this is it's all intersectional. Just because it's brought out broken down in parts doesn't mean we're gonna not cover the intersection. So that's really the beauty of this event is that we're covering. There's so many other issues we can be covering. This is just the ones we'll get to.
Hmm. Yeah,
And then we'll continue the conversation through social, through TikTok, So
yeah.
that's also a part of the conversation as well.
Got you, got you. So tell me a little bit more about because you mentioned that young folks are typically always making change, but they very rarely have really the I guess being put up as leadership and as voices in that sense.
Hmm.
Can you because and that's a little bit new to me too because when and maybe it's just because I've just worked with a bunch of Gen Zers, so maybe I'm
Yeah.
just unique in that sense. Because it seems like especially with the last election, like Gen Z was really out there, really pushing. What are some examples that you can say that Gen Z really, really pushed through, didn't get the leadership voices they really deserved in that moment, and how can those things kind of be changed moving forward?
Yeah, and we've seen the drumbeat of young people across the last several years. So, 2018 March for Our Lives, we kind of said that thoughts and prayers are not enough. We need policy change.
Yeah.
In 2019, we had people march for the climate justice, understanding that the climate crisis is not a future threat, but rather a present one.
Hmm.
And then in 2020, young people shifted our energy from the streets to the polls. Young
Yes.
people showed up in record numbers, particularly BIPOC youth showed up in record
Hmm.
numbers,
Hmm.
and really claimed our power. 50% of young people at least showed up, 11 points up from 2016. So we were seeing all these pockets, but I think still, as we think through federal youth engagement and the kind of representation across federal government, it's still not there. And then I think often folks, if we want to bring in young people, it's like, okay, we're at the table, but it's like it's a listening based conversation. It's like, okay, we're
Yeah.
here, but like we have no decision making power. So,
Right.
that's really where we're at, and that's really why we're creating things, spaces like Young People Just a Nation to really address that.
Yeah, for sure. I back when I used to work actually like for government officials, with the days when the kids would come in, it was just basically like you bring them in, you sit down, you're like, what would you like to tell me, young person?
Yeah.
Oh, you're brilliant. Oh, you're brilliant. And then like none of it would get done. So I
Yep.
totally see what you're saying, where it's like they're perfectly happy to have you at the table.
Yep.
It's just that they don't want you actually being the head of the table and then,
Hmm.
pushing actual things that young folks want. So totally, totally
Yeah.
can get that. What do you think young people would like in an ideal world? What do people want to hear Biden talk about in the State of the Union? Like, what if he could slam it and knock it out the park? What would be some things that Gen Z in particular and young folks would like to hear him say and talk about what's next, where we are, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's really this idea of bringing folks at the table across these key issues. So,
Mhm.
we're thinking a lot about, so we're going to cover all these key issues, and folks are going to talk about their lived experiences and connection to each of these issues.
Mhm.
Like things like climate. It's like we need actual action, but I think we also need an active commitment from President Biden to show up for young people. And again, historic number of folks showed up, and we folks are expecting things.
Yeah.
So I think for us, it's really this idea that we not only want to be listened to, but actively be in the conversation, because it's
Mhm.
not, we folks, the organizers have the solutions. So it's really like, how can folks be brought into that room and to be heard what they need in their communities, and
Mhm.
trusting them to give the solutions to their problems. And then it's also relying on there to actually be action. So
Mhm.
folks are going to come at the youth response to with their solutions.
Yeah.
And this is just one piece of that needs to be an active piece of what's happening across for
Mhm.
President Biden and the White House.
Definitely, definitely. Now, in the past, have the youth response and their solutions that were put up? Has any president ever actually like then gone and done what was asked for in the return address by youth? Has that ever happened? Like somebody came on for you guys, said what the young folks want, and then an elected actually did it.
I think because this is so new, we haven't quite
Mm.
seen actual action. I think we've gotten it's so interesting to for this event particularly because there's over 60 of the leading youth-led and youth-serving groups behind us. So there's a
Oh,
lot of folks who are pushing their solutions and kind of are seeing it in parts. So even if we're doing a youth response, like there's a bunch of organizations who are kind of seeing their facet of what they talked about being pushed forward. But I think why we're continuing and we'll continue to do this is that folks need this space, and we definitely
yes.
are not just making this a media event, but we
Hmm.
do want to be heard. So we are hoping for there to be action based on events like these, but we also
Hmm.
know this is an annual event. Young People Destination is a general campaign, but this youth response is an annual event. So
Right.
we know that doesn't start or end at this event. There will be organizing before, they'll be organizing after. So
Mhm.
we're really hoping, and we wanted this to be something that adds to the space. So
Yes.
that's really our goal, is to help this start a conversation. And then from there, we have all these great partner organizations who are behind us, all these great organizations who do have the call to actions and a way to engage. So essentially,
Hmm.
we're having people watch and engage with us, and then we're linking them back to all the great partner work that's happening.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Like, I mean, you're taking the reins, saying this is what we want. We're here. And they really can't ignore you. I mean, the voting numbers, just like
Right.
they cannot continue to ignore you, like very literally numbers wise, if they want to actually win elections. So I love that. I love the fact that it's not just like you said, just like a media event. There will actually be calls to action throughout this thing. I love this program. Tell us where people can watch, if people want to sign up for anything, get email blasts, all of that. How can people get involved with the wonderful thing that you're building here?
Yes. So this event will take place right after the State of the Union at 10:30 p.m. Eastern at
Mhm.
youngpeopleaddresstheNation.org. And we're across social media at YoungPPL Address across all social media. So we're going to be pushing out content after. And it's a little bit of a late night for us and for folks watching. So we're also going to restream it the next day at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
So this should be a really great event. But again, and you can RSVP now and make sure you get the notification when we go live. But again, this isn't really about ongoing engagement. We're hoping to actively be coordinating this great group of partners. We'll continue to every week send a few ways for folks, the audience, to take action. So for us, this is really just once again a start to a bigger conversation around getting engaged. So we'll be grateful if you joined us at youngpeopledestination.org.
Join them. Join them. Dillon is polite. He'll be grateful. I'm saying do it. Do it, do it, do it right now. As soon as you finish this video, go and join them because this is amazing and we need it. Frankly, like it's just a fact. Again, the numbers are showing that without young people, I mean, even if you are a progressive or rather more centrist, you need young people. Like the Dems need more young people. So please, please, please get involved, listen to what the youth have to say in real ways, and then act upon it. Act. We need people to act. So amazing, Dillon. As always, this has been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here and also for everything you're doing with this program. I'm sure, like, I'll be listening. Number one, I'll be listening. And if Biden is smart, Biden will also listen. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.